Well, hello and welcome to everybody this afternoon. A very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. As you may just have heard, we'll record the session for those who couldn't be with us today. And today I'm delighted to say that we're talking about the very important topic of empowering millennials, in particular within cybersecurity. And I'm delighted too to be joined by Adetokunbo Omotosho. Well, a very warm welcome. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being part of what I know will be a very interesting and inspiring conversation. We decided to talk today, inspired by you, about millennials, a very, very important group within the workforce, and in particular to focus in on nurturing talent and thinking about innovation, mentorship and professional growth, probably amongst some other topics. Our conversation today will take place within the hour and we'll aim to talk for perhaps 45 minutes together and then invite you to share any questions you have in the chat as we go, and we'll stop in about half an hour to see where we are and perhaps work through some of the questions and then continue for 10 or 15 minutes till towards the end of the session. We'll ask for some more questions and respond to as many questions as we can, and then we will finally summarize and wrap up with our Great Place to Work lead, Otemere Elegun. So, may I start by just saying, Adetokunbo, please, would you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Katrina. My name is Adetokunbo Omotosho. I'm CEO of Cybersecurity, a digital trust company that focuses on cybersecurity, compliance, risk, privacy, and governance for organizations, and making that simple.
Thank you so much, Adetokunbo. And I should say that Cybersecurity are a very high-performing and powerful, great place to work. And so I am sure today that we'll hear very many interesting and inspiring stories from that. Before we sort of dive into the topic together, would you be kind enough to tell me a little bit about you and your career to date?
All right. I started out my career in wireless systems deployment. So I started my career at the time where telecoms was just being something that was starting and being pervasive in the country at the time. So I started out working for a company that deployed wireless base stations for internet service providers and telecoms. And I did that for 2 years, then moved into payments, into a payment company, or one of the leading payment companies in Nigeria and Africa today. Worked there for 9 years, where I rose to the level and position of divisional head for IT infrastructure and enterprise security. And after I did that for 9 years, and I moved on to starting InfoPrive, which is a security company as well, and did that for a few years and started Cybersecurity again by merging InfoPrive with another service company in the cybersecurity space to create Cybersecurity. So that's my career history to date. And I've moved between wireless systems, IT systems, system administration, network engineering, also consulting, a little bit of system administration. But over the past few years, I've played more of an advisory role to organizations and executives and helping them understand cybersecurity and how it helps them do their business safely and securely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And what would you say, just a little bit about you, what would you say gets you up in the morning? What really excites you about your work?
It's one thing. One of the things that is the motto of our organization and my personal motto is helping people become a better version of themselves, and organizations become a better version of themselves. So that's what motivates me every morning. So irrespective of the challenges, if we're going to get somebody to be able to do business well, to become more in tune into what they're doing. So it's just helping people to become a better version of themselves. And as I mentioned in my career, one of the things that I've experienced through the years is being trusted advisors to people. So I try to do that in every area of my life, and that's what gives me joy and wakes me up, gives me the juice, as you say, to get going.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh. And if you had to sum up your company, Cybervergent, in a couple of sentences, what would you say?
Our Cybervergent is that digital trust company that uses technology to solve cybersecurity solutions, problems, and privacy problems, risk and compliance problems. So we're just that company that does that to increase confidence levels from your customers, your stakeholders, and ensure you just have a resilient business, a safe business as well. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Before we sort of dive a bit more into the world of cybersecurity and hopefully millennials too, what would you say, looking back, has been your proudest work moment?
Well, that's a big one. I wouldn't say I have a proudest work moment because I have a couple. Like I mentioned earlier, helping people is one of those things. So every time a customer or a colleague of mine at work gets a glowing reference or they are able to figure something out with my help or customers figure something out with the help of the company, those are the moments that really give me joy. So it's not one moment, but a series of moments. And I think that's what, like I said, that's what keeps me going because those moments happen frequently and from time to time.
So it's helping and empowering others and helping to be a better version of themselves and
Exactly.
that trusted advisor that enables. Thank you. Wow. Cybersecurity is something that we hear lots about, but actually a lot of people may not know very much of the detail. Could you just tell me a bit about what's at the heart of cybersecurity and why it's so relevant in today's world?
To simply, what everybody will be able to relate to, cybersecurity is simply about protecting what's critical and what you consider an asset. So what's critical to you? For a lot of people, it means different things. For different entity, it means different things. But cybersecurity is just protecting what is sensitive, what is critical. So your assets, your digital assets, and assets that you work with or operate with in the cyberspace. So as we know, these days, every business is almost going digital, or most businesses are digital. And because you're doing that, then you have some resources or assets that are critical to doing business in that way. What cybersecurity means to that is just helping you do business securely online or through digital means. So protection of those assets, whatever it is. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's your technology, sometimes it's even your process. But to make it down simply to individuals, it's what we all consider assets will be maybe our children, helping them be safe online, and your means and livelihood as well. So your resources in terms of your financial resources, your bank accounts. So it's the protection of all these things within the digital space that's cybersecurity.
Thank you so much. What would you say is the link between cybersecurity and creating a really great place to work, or great workplace, I should say?
Oh, so on the face of it, when you look at it, you say, "Oh, is there really a link?" But there is. Like I mentioned, cybersecurity is about protecting critical assets, ensuring that they continue to deliver value and the maintenance of that value. So cybersecurity is that. But if you know the lifeblood of any great workplace is also its employees, and the employees are key assets. So if you look at it, we've mentioned assets, protection of assets in cybersecurity, but in the workplace, you also have critical and key assets, which are those employees, which you also have to empower, protect to ensure they deliver and maintain that value. So they're very similar in that respect, that you have to protect your assets, but also ensure that they deliver value continuously.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's protecting and enabling and empowering your people.
Exactly.
And how do you, thinking about your employees, how would you say you recognize and reward them their contribution to providing more broadly secure or protected workplaces?
So we do that through a couple of means. So what we've done is created an environment that is a stakeholder environment. So our employees are also stakeholders. So we've not taken the traditional approach or the historical approach where you just have stakeholders as your board members or your shareholders. Everybody in the organization is a stakeholder. So what we do is we reward everybody, but specifically towards staff, we have a system that rewards performance, but also rewards imbibing and living the cultures and values of the organization. And we don't just say culture and values from a standpoint of vision. It's something that's on the document, but it's something that we live daily. And we try as much as possible to pick those out and reward them from time to time using our performance management system. We have team meetings where you're meant to celebrate your team's achievements, individual achievements through our people and culture team as well. So we've created a mix of these. Some are monetary, some are not monetary as well, but we try to achieve that balance, and that's what we do.
And how do you said that the values are lived as such. How do you link the values to recognition?
Also, so because ours is an environment where we are heavy on culture, we get to see these every day. So what we've done is we created not just a performance system whereby you are measured and you are looked at from a point of hard tasks and deliverables, but behaviors as well. So we actually look at behaviors, and those behaviors are also linked to our core values. And we have what we call guiding principles as well, which are just the way you are meant to live and run through those values in your daily life and in your workplace. So we've tied and married all of that together such that there's no disconnect. So that's how we achieve it. So it's a mixture of the hard skills, measuring your hard skills, but also your behaviors as well.
Yes. So the how you do things really matters, because it sounds like it's woven into your processes. And you
Exactly, yes.
Good. Thank you. Well, shall we have a think now about millennials in particular? And I should say to those kindly listening, please do, if questions come to you as we're talking, please do feel free to write them into the chat, and we will visit them maybe round about 1:30 and then round about 1:45 again. But thinking about millennials, so those people born between about 1981 and 1996, so now kind of the age of 28 to 43, I would say they're absolutely a key core of organisations. They're increasingly often rising in terms of seniority, and you might argue influence in organisations. We hear so much about different generations having different motivators to those that came before. Well, many questions, I suppose, and perhaps we'll get on to the motivators shortly, but why are you so passionate about this group, Adetokunbo?
Oh, well, for one, the 50% of our workforce are millennials, so we practically have no choice but to be passionate about them, so that everybody can work well together and deliver on our objectives as an organization. But outside of that, 90% of our managers and leaders are also in this group. So,
Right.
and because there are people I work with and we all work together every day, and it helps me look at how do I achieve that motto and goal and objective of the organization to make people better and entities better. So that's because I interact with them regularly, they're part of the work life. And as I said, making people better and entities better is what wakes me up every day. That's my passion. And if I see people within a group that at a higher percentage within the workforce, then it's only natural that I have to deliver and help them and guide them and mentor them every day, not just from my perspective as well, but from the perspective of the organization, whereby we have to put in place things where they become the best they can be, but also deliver and are also happy. So I'm passionate about this group because I see them regularly. And to be honest, I'm just one generation ahead of them. So as well. So I have no choice.
Yeah. So they're critical, they're key in terms of motivating them and helping them be the best they can be. And do you find it a sort of useful categorization to reflect on the different generations?
To be honest, it's useful, but it can be a little bit of a problem sometimes because we are all human beings first and foremost, and we're all employees in an organization secondly, irrespective of the generation or we fall into. And if you look at that, if that classification is taken too far, then you begin to look at why we're different as against what is our peculiarities, how do we bring them together, how are we similar, and how we can really foster that relationship. So for me, I look beyond it most of the time. When we begin to look at it is trying to understand why certain set of people are behaving in certain way. And when we look at that, it's from a point of how do we get to motivate them? How do we get to shape them? And that's where it becomes useful for us rather than a delineation of, oh, it's Gen X, it's this generation, it's millennials. So that's the way we look at it rather than a hard and fast, oh, these guys are millennials and we are this group and let everybody do their thing. So we look at it from the parts that we're all human beings, first and foremost, but we're also all employees within an organization to deliver an objective. So that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, nice, so lovely. So I understand you. So it's one of a number of lenses and ways of looking at the world, and I think it's lovely that you shared with us this sense that you're all individuals, and each person, each of us may, I suppose, have quite different and unique motivators, but perhaps then there's some sort of commonality about the experience of people who are born in the same approximate or broad cohort. And thinking about that, then just focusing in on this notion of millennials and perhaps some of their shared perspectives. Do you have any views about what unique perspective millennials might bring that's distinct from perhaps the generation that I fall into above Gen Z or Gen X?
Yes. So there's quite a few, but the one that sticks out for me the most is work-life balance. It's something that they value a lot. The generations prior to them were heavy on work more than life, as we all know. They are a generation that looks at work and seeks and are drawn towards work-life balance. So for me, that's one of the unique things they bring. Other generations after them are also skewed towards life as well. So they teach not just to older generations, but other generations that there is something in work-life balance. But one of the things I tell them is modify that a little, that if you spend half or greater part of your life at work, then you need to blend the two as against balancing, because when you say balance, it means something is on the negative side or something is on the receiving end of that weight or scale. So for me, what I tend to do is, even though you say it's balance, work a little bit, it's more of integration. And I find that every time I say that to this group of people, there's this light bulb that, oh, that means I need to treat work as something that I need to enjoy rather than something that's tedious and laborious, because that's the way I look at my life. So in learning from them that work-life balance is important, I'm also, and we're also giving back to them that it's more of a work-life integration as well. So that's one key thing and one key area that their perspective and their characteristics has really come to life and has helped shape our thinking and thought.
Very good. So from them, the sense that it is important to have life as well as the work, but from your generation, the sense then that it's important to enjoy every moment and make that work space an enjoyable space in which you're contributing strongly. Are there any other key I suppose, differentiators that you might share about millennials? So quite often people say, oh, it's quite often said, isn't it? Millennials are very engaged with technology. They're quite into the environment. I don't know if there are any other themes that strike
Oh,
you.
so they're very socially conscious. So they like to and they are drawn to social activities, so things outside work as well. So that is also one area. So they make the workplace very lively. So a lot of initiatives come from them. But because they also value experiences as well, in addition to being socially conscious, that blend of valuable experiences. So for instance, if you're doing something in the workplace, they tend to value those things that are experiential for them, which is why they're also a group of people that like mentoring, for instance, because of the experience they get from that. But also, one of the other things is they like stability, they value stability. So, unlike other generations after them who are a bit more tuned to entrepreneurial, catch the next fancy of things. They are more stable than those generations. They value work, they value routine, they see the value in what those things bring to their lives. So if you look at this, they just kind of teach other generations that there's that balance that needs to be struck amongst every value we have in whatever generation. But they seem to have by nature have those things that would easily make them I won't say better human beings, but good human beings
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, nice. Oh, and if you had to share from your experience one piece of advice that's really powerful in motivating millennials, what would it be? And I know we're all individuals, clearly, but is there anything that's particularly important in motivating millennials as a group?
For me, it's because they like stability, and they are socially conscious, but also like experiences. One of the things that I've noticed and I like to share is around the experience and stage of life they are at. Most of them are at that stage of life where they're either getting married, just getting married, or just becoming adults and parents, or just becoming managers or leaders within the workplace. One of the things that is they need a lot of guidance and mentorship because it's something they're getting into that they haven't experienced before. Um, that patience with them has to be there in guiding them, inspiring them as well, so that they can have that complete experience and not make mistakes. So that's one area that I see that really, really is going to help in motivating this group of people if we focus on the stage of life they're at, what challenges and what support they need to go through these stages, whatever it may be it marriage, be it parenting, be it becoming a manager or leader for the first time, or be it the first time I'm going on holiday.
Yeah. Oh, and thinking about that, so it's a really powerful response that at the heart of it seems to be supporting people. And again, perhaps back to this theme you mentioned at the beginning of helping people to give of their best and deliver the best for the organisation. Thinking about the sort of work environment and day-to-day work environment, what sort of work environment do you think brings out the best in millennials?
It's a work environment that values their contributions a lot. They're also given the opportunity to grow. So something that gives them that purpose is, yes, they like coming to work. Yes, they enjoy life. They seek work-life balance, but that environment that gives them a mix of that, but also gives them a mix of responsibility and a bit of support and guidance as well. So where they're stable in both their work experiences, but there's support for what they're going through in life as individuals and as human beings as well. So they value such experience, such workplaces. And normally, sometimes where you understand that they value it is if one of these things is missing, then it can have an adverse effect on their performance as well. And it's also important that that ability to support them or creating that environment where there's that channel of support and guidance is very important for them.
Yeah, and so important, you would say, that it can impact performance. And I would imagine that a supportive framework, and from research, certainly a supportive framework is important for all of us at work. But from your experience, it might be particularly important as people are growing in that phase of being a millennial.
Yeah.
And how do you provide that sort of supportive yet challenging environment at Cybervergent?
So
It's quite a big question.
Yeah, so it's quite complex mix of a few things. So that we're in a space that's dynamic and frequently changing. So there's enough challenge in that space and regard, to be honest. So we do work that's challenging in itself. It's frequently changing. We get to meet a lot of clients and customers with different problems and different perspectives. That seems to give them that experience of, oh, I'm doing this for the first time, I'm meeting people, I'm solving their problems. So naturally, by the position we occupy or the market segment we're in, we've been able and lucky enough to curate those kind of experiences by our work. But also what we've done is create the opportunity for people to grow. So we're a growing organization, and what we try to do first and foremost is look at people's trajectory. What are you strong at? What is your superpower? That's the word we use. What's your superpower? So, and help them blow up on that. And once you help them blow up on that, we begin to now marry it with an experience whereby you're doing something unique each time. It's in a fast-paced environment. But because we're also an organization that's heavy on helping people, that fast-paced nature we try to balance. So I'll give an example of somebody who's been working regularly, keeping customers happy from time to time, getting different experiences. There's that possibility of burnout, which we experience on occasion. So what we try to do is say, you don't have to wait until you're due for your annual leave. Sometimes you could structure whereby, do I come to work a bit later in the day? Can I close earlier than normal? What are my deliverables for that day? Once I'm clear on my deliverables from that day, can I work remotely, go home and rest from time to time? So all that helps us, even though we're in a challenging space and environment and a fast-paced one. So it's just a mixture of things around ensuring the employees are considered in everything. Even more, we need to continuously be at the forefront of what we're doing, which in itself is a challenge. But we also now face the challenge of balancing, not burning out, getting the best out of them, not being too lazy as well. So it's just that creative mix that we keep working on figuring out from time to time. And I'll say it's not perfect. It can never be perfect. Sometimes we get new pieces of information and we quickly try to put that to work and see how it works out for us and take the wins and adapt to whatever we need to adjust very quickly.
But thank you so much. So a mix of sort of, it sounds like embracing the fast-paced environment and helping people think about what my individual superpowers are and how I can maximize on those, but also it sounds very much like you empower people to take control and think, well, listen, I will come in a little bit late, or I will look after myself so that I can keep my energy levels going, so I can continue to contribute well.
Exactly.
So these, perhaps you might say, are some this thinking and resulting practices are perhaps driven by millennials and their specific needs, but I imagine that there may be a benefit for us all. Well, thank you so much, Adetokunbo. Should we have a little look now and see if we have any questions that we might like to share? I see we've got 3.
No worries. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll have a look. So our first one from Okoli, It says, how do you manage high staff turnover, especially with your best people?
Also, it's interesting. So when you say best people, it's a continuous process. You should always, at any point in time, as a good organization, try to create the best people in everyone. So yes, you do have, at any point in time, you have star performance. But what we've also realized is there's a saying in my local parlance that says 20 children can't play together for 20 years. It's not possible. We understand that some people will leave, but what we do is have that what we call pipeline of talent from time to time, train them and get them ready. So once we lose people, there's somebody ready to take their places. So if somebody goes, there's somebody ready. We're also heavy over the last few years of creating succession plans, creating processes. We have processes in place whereby everything you do is supposed to be documented. So if you leave, somebody else can take over. But we're also creating teams and environments where knowledge is shared. The way you do things, if you're somebody who is a star performer, for instance, it might just be one of your traits that makes you a star performer with the customer. We encourage people to share that internally, and people imbibe that. So there'll always be high staff or turnover. We've experienced it from time to time. But what we've done is try and create that pipeline of people to come into the system continuously, but also within the system, ensure that that thing that makes you a great employee, a great person, you try and as much as possible to share with your team. And we actually drive this as a culture. Yeah. So that's how we cope with that.
Thank you so much. And Akoli also asks, what's your process of managing and attracting great talent, which I think you partially addressed there, but is there anything you'd add?
So to be honest, it's a mix of different things, but one of the biggest ones we've seen of recent is um, because we've created a very good workplace in terms of skill and capabilities, but also behaviors and the environment. It's easy to attract people. So people within our industry, like we would love to work with Cybersecurity. So we get a lot of cold requests. I get a lot in my email on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people with our organization get that too. I'd like to work with you. We like what you're doing. But we also attract talents because people see the work we do out there and the quality of our work. And people also like to be able to deliver at that level. So if you are the best of yourself, or you've created people who are the best of themselves, people are attracted to that because everybody wants to be a better person. So that's alone has created a pool for us which we can draw from. Yes, sometimes it can be hard to attract at some levels, especially the senior levels, but at the end of the day, the brand and the culture we've created helps us to attract people. So we've experienced it at a very high level in the past 18 months where people just reach out to us and say, we'd like to work with you, or I love what your company is doing. I want to come and learn what you're doing, how you guys behave, how you guys comport yourselves as well. So it's just our culture and the way the brand is perceived that helps us. And we've created that very deliberately.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's very powerful to hear you sort of telling the story from the inside, because obviously from the Great Place to Work perspective, we know that high-performing cultures, great workplaces do attract far more people to come and work for them. And it's just lovely to hear the sort of inside of that. So we have another question or a statement, and the person says, in Nigerian workplaces where there is a lack of cybersecurity education and awareness, how can organisations ensure that millennials are equipped with necessary skills and knowledge to protect sensitive data and prevent cyber threats?
So, to be honest, I think this goes beyond millennials as well. So it's everybody. If you're looking at protecting your organization, even though millennials are a great part or a great number within workforces today. But like I said, it's understanding what motivates them. If they're more socially conscious and savvy, then you might want to create security education and awareness programs around those areas, what actually motivates them, attracts them. There's also that part where they're technology savvy as well. So you want to create programs as well. And also because they're experiential, you want to infuse a lot of this. So if I know that this motivates somebody, the easiest way to get to the person is to do something that motivates him. So if you're going to create cybersecurity awareness and education that is really going to equip them and is really going to stick with them and have a place in their hearts, then you need to tailor it to what will motivate them. And people use the term these days, gamify. So you have to gamify such programs around their motivators.
Yeah. So it's really understand your audience and what motivates them.
Yeah.
Respond to their needs rather than tell them what you want in the way you want.
Exactly.
All right. Now, George has given us, as maybe you can see, a wonderful best practice question. So I wondered if you could maybe share some best practices that workplaces can use to empower millennials in cybersecurity roles.
All right. One of the things to do, I won't call them best practices because it assumes they are practices that are not good. You shouldn't focus on. So I generally just say practices. Good practices is simply put is creating that environment where there is purpose. Yeah. So if I'm coming into a role as a cybersecurity, I need to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And we have that conversation a lot at work, that this is the purpose of your role. This is the outcome of your role. But we'll also try and give a little bit of responsibility. So they are responsible and accountable. That gives the experiential part of things, because if you are accountable and responsible, then you have a leeway to make some certain decisions or take certain actions that are your own as against your manager or a process. And that gives them that experience. But most importantly is around purpose. And this goes beyond millennials. It's across all generations. The purpose for which you are doing something. So if you're in cybersecurity, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going into cybersecurity because it makes a lot of money. But if you are driven by other things outside of money, then you won't find it good. So if you just pay cybersecurity professionals very well, but there are other motivating factors, then you are not hitting the mark. So practices would vary. High workplace, giving experiential learning is also important, but also giving the ability to practice what they do. So a lot of theory is being done in the cybersecurity space. People go for certifications without knowledge, actual hands-on. So if you're going to get somebody or get a workplace to thrive with millennials in the cybersecurity workspace, then they need to be able to practice, give the opportunity to practice what they've learned, all those certifications and classes they've done, give them the ability to practice, but practice in a way that's not damaging to the environment. Because I know people will say, oh, I can't allow them to use me for trial and error. But you create a safe environment where they're able to practice, but an environment where they're also able to learn new things doing that. So those are things you can put in place as well. But because we also know that our space is a high pressure one, you also have to create that ability where people are able to take breaks, that integration of the work-life balance, as they say. So it's not just about work, but it's also taking into cognizance that people will need to rest, recover, and recharge to give their best.
Give the best. Thank you so much. And are there any best practices in particular for millennials in cybersecurity that you'd give around helping them to cope with the fast evolving threat landscape? So I suppose to keep on top of what's happening.
Yeah, so it's generally pacing. So one mistake that a lot of people make, including millennials, is I want to learn everything quickly, so fast. In all reality, everything is a process. You have to take one step before the other. So it's just prioritizing what will give you that bang for the buck. So if I have the opportunity to learn 3 things in cybersecurity, excuse me, the best way to do it is not to learn those 3 things at the same time, is to look at one that will give me the opportunity as foundation so that I can build upon it. So if I do something now, what will I do to give me experience or the basis to build upon it? So I'll give a very technical example. Most people go into cybersecurity and say, oh, I want to become a governance, risk, and compliance specialist. But you have no experience. And what they do is they go and take courses around governance, courses around risk. But one of the best ways to do it is start with the foundation. What areas am I going to be an expert in this area and build upon it? Do I need to learn about systems? Do I need to learn about processes? Do I need to learn about certain technologies? Then you build upon it. That way you're able to pace yourself. But the important thing from this is there is no quick way to becoming that. It's just a process. You need to build gradually. And that's the mistake I see a lot of people make, as millennials as well, is I just want to become a cybersecurity expert in 1 year. It just doesn't happen in reality.
So it's focusing your learning and being realistic. Yeah, about what's going to be most valuable and how long it will take. I think if we may, Kingsley has posed a few amazing questions. I think what we'll do now, for reasons of time, if we could perhaps ask you one of Kingsley's questions, then ask a few more questions and then come back to them. I think because we've got a couple of other topics to cover. And Kingsley asked the wonderful question, what are your greatest challenges as a cybersecurity business?
Oh, well, the greatest challenge is to stay abreast and in front of those threats that our customers face. Because if we don't do that, then eventually we will have no business because our customers will believe we can't protect them. So it's just staying abreast of what is happening within the technology space in general and how that applies to businesses and how that applies to the risks that businesses will face. And once we understand that, then we are able to apply cybersecurity, which is just the protection of those assets. So the greatest challenge for us is understanding that being at the forefront of those evolving technologies, evolving ways of doing things. So for instance, now everybody's talking about AI, everybody's talking about blockchain. We need to be at the forefront of what are the risks from blockchain, what are the risks of using AI, and we as a business prefer solutions whereby we mitigate whatever risk those are and offer those to our clients as well. So that's our greatest challenge as a business from a cybersecurity point of view.
Very good. So being ahead of the game. And what about, would you say anything else in terms of what are your greatest challenges as a techpreneur? Or is it very much the same?
It's almost the same thing, but generally is talent, ensuring that you have the best workforce. So as well, because the organization itself is a collection of people to deliver on those objectives to clients and all stakeholders. So for me, the biggest challenge is just keeping the workforce at that point of being the best in terms of technical skill, but also knowing that they have a life and the emotional balance of being very skilled at what you do, but also being a good human being, because being a human being helps you to interact with customers, different people, challenging situations, and getting over these situations in one piece and with a good state of mind as well.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, yes. So thinking about, being a whole person and how you're a whole person rather than just the cybersecurity expert works. Thank you. I think we will now, if it's okay with you, pick up on Kingsley's last question because it brings us back into millennials, and we've got a couple of other nice topics to cover today around mentorship and professional growth. But before we do, Kingsley passes the observation that indiscipline is very dominant among millennials in the workplace in this part of the world. How do you manage that challenge?
Well, I won't say indiscipline, but for me, let me just answer it the way he said it, indiscipline. So for there to be indiscipline, you need to first define what discipline is within a workplace. So if people understand what discipline or what expectations you have from them, then it goes a long way to shaping people. Like they say, if there's no law, then how do we know we've gone aloof of the law? We will just behave anyhow at any time. So first and foremost is understanding that, and a lot of that is driven by culture and the values. So setting those values and culture and living it. So as I mentioned earlier, values and culture is not about something on being on a piece of paper or something you paste on the wall in your office. It's those things you live by from time to time. So what we have done, and I'll use us as an example, is what we have done is we reinforce this continually and we encourage people to reinforce it. And what we say, so when people are reinforcing it, we say there's the human and there's the act. So if somebody behaves in a way that is contrary to our expectations, deal with the person separately from the acts the person has committed. So don't mix both, because once you mix both, you're likely to hurt the person, even though the act might have been unconscious or there are reasons for the act. So we take those differently. And that is what we preach in addition to defining those cultures and embodying them. But where it comes up, we tend and usually tell you we're addressing the matter. This is the matter at hand. We try to remove the individual as a person and focus on the matter. So that way people know that you actually understand that I am a human being. I'm not just me and I don't like doing bad things, because naturally every good human, every person has some element of good, and nobody likes to just continuously be a truant. If you have such person in your system, then the system and your guiding principles, your values should actually isolate such people, and you deal with them from a human resource and disciplinary point of view. But what we do is define what our expectations are, driven by our culture, but also shape people regularly. And where there's cases of indiscipline, we actually, depending on the gravity, because we've defined it and we've communicated it, depending on the gravity, then there are penal acts. So we say, because you've done something, there will always be consequences. The weight of the consequences is what differs from time to time. So that's the way we approach it.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, I'd love to spend a few moments with you focusing on a topic which brings us back to the notion of support and helping people give of their best, mentorship. So I know from our earlier conversations, this is something you're passionate about. What is mentorship and why do you see it as so powerful?
So for me, mentorship is about guiding, advising, and influencing somebody's behavior and outlook to life generally. And that's based on somebody else's experience. It could be the mentor himself or somebody else, but generally somebody else. And why that's so powerful is, why that's so powerful for me is there's a saying, you learn from experience, your experience, but I've modified that over the years and said, it says you need to learn from experience or learn from your mistakes, but it doesn't have to be your own experience or your own mistake. It just says you have to learn. So that's the way I approach it. That's what I believe mentorship should be about, is influencing, advising, guiding people so that they don't make the mistakes previous generations prior to them make, but also take the positive side of other people and the way they've lived their lives so that they can actually live the same way or even better. And that helps to fast track development for them as well as the mentor.
Thank you. And how do you use mentoring in Cybervergent?
Also, we do that in a couple of ways. So at a time, to to get into the mentoring mindset, we actually changed nomenclature. We changed it from manager to leader for people, so that you know that part of leadership is that you need to mentor, you need to envision, you need to guide those working with you as well. So we look at mentorship from a leadership point of view and as part of our system. And I say from time to time to people within the organization, as a leader, you don't dump, you delegate stuff, but also coach. And delegation means you're guiding somebody, they know the expectation. But we've now layered that with the fact that you need to mentor them, you need to guide them because they might not have that experience. So we've tried to do cascade that to all the levels within the organization. But for us, mentorship is powerful. For instance, when you're coming into the organization for the first time, we assign a body to you. This is somebody who knows about your role or your department very well, but also has influence on what you're doing and how your work might influence others, and guides you through the organization, shapes you, introduces you to people, gives you some nuggets. These are the things you shouldn't do and should do. And after that, we also, from a people and culture point of view, from our people and culture department, there's also the business partnering. So they go to departments and see what their problems are, their challenges, and help them fix it. And for all leaders as well within the organization, the executives, you are meant to mentor people from a one-on-one basis. So we say it's not just about their professional lives, but also the personal lives. So one of our guiding principles says connect and collaborate. And what the connect means is you need to be able to connect to somebody to be able to work with them better. And this is from the aspect of, okay, I need to understand what this person is about, what's driving them, what are their life experiences, but what do they also want to achieve, and guide them through achieving it, influencing them to achieve it as well. So those are the things we do from a mentorship point of view within our organization.
Thank you so much. And earlier in our conversation, you shared the view that millennials perhaps could share with others something about the power and importance of work-life balance. And that perhaps those older in the generational tree could perhaps share the importance of enjoying every moment at work. Are there any other things that, I suppose, well, first question, what else, is there anything else that we can learn from millennials, the rest of us?
Well, it's I think it's one thing, be a little bit more political savvy. So they're very savvy politically, they have their ideas, but they also have that balance where even though they have some political ideas, they tend to understand when not to be too pushful on them, around them. So I think different generations can learn about that as well. But also, in addition to that, is valuing stability within their lives. And I assign or ascribe stability to, at each part or time of my life, there are some things I'll be going through, and I expect that those things are going to take center and priority of my life as against other things. So, and why this is important is, if, for instance, I'll give an example. If I'm getting married, I need to understand that I now have somebody else in my life. And that person needs to be factored into when I go to work, how many hours I spend at work. If I have a kid at the adulting stage or parenting stage, I need to understand I have a kid, what things do those kids need, and factor that into life. So different generations will tend to take these things for granted a little bit, but they have that balance and that demand that at each stage of my life, there's certain expectations, certain things that are non-negotiable for me at this stage of life as well. So just grounding everybody to realize at certain stages of life, certain things are important, and give priority to them.
Thank you so much. And thinking about just very, very briefly about millennials and growth, what piece of advice or one learning have you had that has really helped to drive the successful growth of millennials? You mentioned support earlier. I don't know whether it would be that.
You just took the word out of my mouth. It's that support and mentorship, but to guide them in different areas where they are, where they might need help. So it's that support and mentorship that is required from time to time. For me, that's the biggest takeaway from everything else, just to realize that this set of people really do appreciate coaching and mentoring and giving them support in different areas of their lives and not just from professional point of view. Some other generations appreciate talk to me about my work only. Some generations appreciate talk to me about my life only. They take both sides very importantly and consciously. So it's knowing that you can support them in those areas. For me, that has been the most powerful thing in motivating and working in the workforce, heavily skilled and biased towards millennials.
Wow, thank you. So it's something in a way about seeing the whole person and being open to the whole person and what they bring. And I would love to talk to you all day, but very mindful of time. I suppose just thank you for sharing so much about your experience and expertise. And thinking about Cybervergent, what would you say you're most proud of? We've heard of lots of really strong things about the culture and the practices that you drive, but what would you say you're most proud of within Cybervergent that helps make it a great place to work?
Oh, to be honest, what I'm most proud of, it sounds cliche, is the people that make the brand. Because these are the guys that have helped us be what we are, where we have customers who are so happy about what we do, we get referrals, but also people want to join us. But more importantly for me, even as a leader, is somewhere I look forward to going to every day. So I've been accused why I come to work so early, earlier than almost everybody else. Even though I'm an early riser, it's because the workplace is very interesting. I get to experience different things working with very great people. So for me, that's one of the best things about Cybervergence, the brand. Even from our customers, we get this feedback all the time. So for me, it's the people, the great people I work with.
Thank you so, so much. I very much valued our time today, and I'd like to say thank you and hand over to you, Otemere, to sum up for us.
Excellent, Petrina and Tokumbo talks, right? A number of things actually sparked up when you spoke. First of all, for emphasis, Cybervergent is a great place to work. Cybervergent also won the Best Practice Award for Millennials. It was initially when you had chosen that topic, it didn't sink in until some hours towards this session when I looked around and found out that your company actually had won the award for best practices for the small category of best workplaces in Nigeria. So without a shadow of doubt, that's the reason why you are motivated about working with millennials. Also, something that sparked so much interest with me was when you talked about purpose. Globally, from our analysis, we see that purpose is the biggest retainer that retains people most across the globe. There is an analysis that says where purpose is well defined within the workplace, there is a great possibility that you can retain 2.7 times more people, employees, working in your organization. And so it's so important that purpose is important for organizations. Also, too, we see that pride for the organization, pride for what you do is also very important. And also, interestingly, too, we see fun. Fun, from our analysis across the globe, is the biggest integrator across different ages. So where you have millennials, where you have Gen Zs, where you have baby boomers and the rest of them, we see from our analysis also that fun in the workplace is one of the biggest integrators for companies. Also, too, when you spoke, a number of times we've had opportunities of having sessions with the company leaders, and the way they would complain about Gen Zs, the way they would complain about millennials within the organization, I just feel like transporting you to the next session we have with those leaders to be able to share your insights. But the good thing about this is that this recording is available. Within the next couple of days, it will be made available to all those who have attended this session. There's a lot of things that we can learn from Tokunbo's session. Hopefully, we are able to build better workplaces where we have millennials and Gen Zs contributing even more to the global best interest of the organization. I want to thank everybody who's been part of this session today. It's been a very great session. I could be here for the next 2 more hours speaking with Tokunbo around his love for millennials, but unfortunately, we have to be able to call it a day. Thank you very much for taken out time from your very busy schedules to be with us today. Another date is next month, precisely on the 11th of April. We'll be having another special guest, another great workplace, to be able to provide insights around great workplaces. For us in Nigeria, we're basically building a community of great workplaces. Imagine if 10% of workplaces in Nigeria are great workplaces. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Wishing you a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thank you all.